Good morning. Today's daily reflection for August 20th, 2020. Toward emotional freedom. Let's go. So, good morning. One sober to another. I'm Wayne, and today's daily reflection. Toward emotional freedom. Since defective relations with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes, including our alcoholism, no field of investigation could yield more satisfying and valuable rewards than this one. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 80. Willingness is a particular thing for me in that, over a period of time, it seems to come, first with awareness, but then with a feeling of discomfort, making me want to take some action. As I reflected on taking the 8th step, my willingness to make amends to others, as a desire for forgiveness of others and myself. I felt forgiveness towards others after I became aware of my part in the difficulties of relationships. I wanted to feel the peace and serenity described in the promises. From working the first 7 steps, I became aware of whom I have harmed and that I have been my own worst enemy. In order to restore my relationships with my fellow human beings, I knew I would have to change. I wanted to learn to live in harmony with myself and others so that I could also live in emotional freedom. The beginning of the end to my isolation from my fellows and from God, or whatever spiritual element you want to replace with that if that's not your thing, came when I wrote my 8th step. As I was reading this, at first I was trying to digest it as a means of, I was just bad to other people, or that things had been broken up and that if I just fix them, then I would experience emotional freedom and what the promises had said it would deliver. I had to become willing to admit my part in things, as the 8th step is making a list of all the people you have harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. It's not just about, people who have harmed you, because that would be a counterproductive thing in order to just list that out without listing your part in those things as well. When I read that, I had to restore those relationships that I broke during my alcoholism, because, a lot of the isolation, that's not a word. Isolation, dug me deeper into the lack of a relationship with people. As a matter of fact, like I said before in a couple videos, if you were going to interrupt my drinking behavior or my opportunity to have a drink, I didn't want much to do with you. So I had to restore these relationships, and I had to admit my fault in the way things had gone, in those relationships being torn apart. I also had to make a relationship if I didn't already have one, because I really didn't have a spiritual relationship. And I had to build a relationship with my higher power, which is God. Your higher power might be different. And, I knew I would have to change. I would have to change the people, places, and things in my lifestyle, the way that I thought about the people, the way that I approached relationships. I had to make adjustments, especially when I came home from rehab the first time. My wife reluctantly had come to the rehab facility to have a mediated meeting between myself, her, and my counselor. And I'll be honest, initially I really was more like, F it. I mean, you can go now, because she was adamant about, if I have one more drink, then the relationship is completely gone and it can't be restored. And at first I was dismissive, and I was like, it's whatever, just go. But after working through the steps, I knew that I had to change the way I was approaching it, and I had to make a honest amends, and that meant internally and externally with her in order to heal that relationship, as well as that with other people by admitting my own fault in things. And as an alcoholic, and if you're an addict, I mean, it's something that is so hard for us to admit that we are at fault. But until we do, those relationships can't be restored. That includes with your higher power. If that's, something that you need to fix. And for me, it was. I didn't have a relationship with God, and I needed to build it. And once I did, I was able to start living through what the promises said it would deliver. And in my life, I know that my higher power is working. And I am definitely still striving towards an emotional freedom. And I'm achieving it every day that I'm able to admit my faults with you, and the way that I'm able to admit my faults and standings with my wife and my son. And more people than that, but they're the most particular, as well as keep a connection with my higher power. Well, that has been today's daily reflection, and I think that, you may have your own idea of what working toward emotional freedom may mean for you. So feel free to drop those comments below and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It doesn't matter, simply because that will help push this video along and more people will see it, and perhaps someone who needs it will see it the most. One sober to another, you have a fantastic